Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The projector hummed, its beam spilling maps and coordinates across the dusty wall. A dozen men leaned forward, whispering, scribbling, trading quick looks of fear masked as banter. But her chair, slightly back, almost in the shadow, might as well have been empty. No one asked her view. No one asked her name. She sat perfectly still, pen untouched, eyes locked on the red circles glowing on the map. Her presence went unnoticed, or maybe it was easier for them not to notice her, easier to dismiss the shadow in daylight. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. The colonel cleared his throat. Target here, Mountain Road, East Ridge. Convoy will move at first light. His finger traced a jagged line. We need Overwatch, clean eyes, precise shots, no mistakes. Every man around the table nodded, eager, as though the nodding itself made them braver. She didn't move. Her silence was its own language. Any volunteers? Voices overlapped. Two names rose quickly. Both men wore confidence like armor. Neither of them glanced her way. The colonel's eyes swept the room, pausing just a moment too long when they landed on her. It was not contempt in his gaze, closer to doubt, closer to the weight of expectation that he hadn't asked for but somehow carried. "All right," he said finally, "assignments are set." Chairs scraped, boots thudded. Laughter rose, hollow and brittle. She stood last, slipping her notepad into her vest, movements practiced, precise. Nobody noticed the way her jaw tightened. Nobody asked the one question that mattered, why she carried herself like someone who already knew the ending. Outside, the night was windless. The desert held its breath. She lit no cigarette, made no small talk, just walked toward the armory where the smell of oil and steel filled the silence. Her rifle waited, black, scarred, loyal. She ran her hand along the stock, fingertips catching each notch carved along the grip. Not decorations, not kills, memories. Names only she remembered, some still alive, some not. Her hand froze over the last notch. A year old, nearly faded. She exhaled through her nose, closed her eyes. That's why she was here. That's why she stayed invisible, letting them pretend she wasn't the best among them. She owed someone. She owed more than one. She began the ritual, cleaning, checking, breathing with the weapon until the two of them were one. Outside, a truck revved, voices rose, faded. The camp moved like a restless animal, but she kept her rhythm slow, unbroken. She wasn't in a hurry. Shadows never are. Hours later, she was prone against rock, the desert stretching endless under a pale sky. Her scope framed the road, dusty, narrow, carved like a scar into the mountain's side. The sun hadn't risen yet. The air tasted metallic, cold against her teeth. Her earpiece crackled. Overwatch, confirm eyes. She pressed her thumb to transmit. Eyes. Her voice was flat, steady. No name, no greeting, just confirmation. Silence followed. They wanted someone else on this ridge. They'd gotten her. Down in the valley, the convoy stirred. 3 trucks, armored, crawling through the dirt like insects. She tracked the lead vehicle, breath synced with the earth's slow turning. "Hold until mark," the colonel's voice ordered. Her scope lingered on the driver's window. A face, barely visible, fleeting. Young, scared, same as all of them. She shifted to the second truck, then the third. Every face was a possibility. Every life a weight. She blinked slowly. The world narrowed. Inhale, hold, exhale. But then something. Movement at the ridgeline opposite. A flicker of light gone in an instant. Not sun, not chance. A glint of metal. Her stomach tightened. She adjusted the scope, glass sweeping the rocks, searching. Nothing. Just stillness, emptiness, but she knew what she saw. "Overwatch to command," she whispered. "We're not alone." Static, then say again. "I saw reflection. Ridge 300 meters east. Possible Overwatch on us." The radio stayed quiet too long. She could almost hear their doubt, their reluctance to take her seriously. Finally, copy, continue observation. She ground her teeth. Continue, observe. as if waiting made the danger less real, as if her warning was just another ghost in daylight. The convoy crawled closer, dust lifted, shimmering in the dawn. Her crosshairs hovered over steel, glass, human skin. Another glint, sharper this time, she had no doubt now. Someone was watching them, someone waiting. She had to choose: break orders and fire blind into rock, or let the convoy roll into a kill zone. Her finger trembled near the trigger guard. Memories surfaced uninvited. A boy's laughter cut off by silence, a hand slipping from hers in the dark, the sound of boots running the wrong way. She blinked hard, clearing them, forcing herself into the now. She whispered to herself, not into the mic, "Not this time." Her scope steadied. East ridge, stone, shadow, and then there, the faintest curve of a barrel, waiting, patient. Her shot broke the morning. The echo snapped across stone, scattering birds into the sky. Her earpiece exploded with voices. Who fired? Confirmed shot. She didn't answer, she didn't need to. Through the scope she saw a body slump forward, unseen by the convoy still crawling below. She exhaled. One less threat. One more second of safety bought. But safety is never permanent. The convoy braked. Soldiers spilled out, weapons raised, shouts tearing across the valley. Confusion, fear, the sudden knowledge that the world had changed in a single heartbeat. She stayed still, invisible against stone. Just a shadow, just a line of breath in the wind. The colonel's voice cut through. "Overwatch, report, what did you see?" Her mouth was dry. She almost told him everything, the reflection, the rifle, the choice she made. Almost. But then she stopped. Let the silence answer for her. Because this wasn't about recognition. It wasn't about being right. It was about keeping them alive, whether they noticed her or not. And in that moment, prone against unyielding stone, she realized she could live with being unseen, as long as her actions weren't. The convoy moved again, slower now, wary, each truck hugging the road like it could vanish into the rock. She tracked them until the dust swallowed their shape. Her rifle cooled against her cheek. Her heartbeat slowed, but in her chest something still burned, a secret, a promise, a memory of someone who once said, "Don't let them forget who you are." She closed her eyes, whispered into the empty air, "I haven't." And though no one heard her, the silence carried it. Why did she never tell them the truth about where she came from? Morning bled into noon, the desert light sharp and merciless. She stayed on the ridge, motionless, a figure blended into stone. Hours passed, and still no one came to relieve her. Not that she expected relief. Shadows don't ask for permission to fade. Her earpiece hissed once, then cleared. The colonel's voice, low, clipped. "Overwatch, return to base. Debrief in 20. She hesitated, eyes scanning the valley one last time. Nothing moved now except dust curling over the road, soft as smoke. The kills she'd taken lay unseen, swallowed by distance. She wondered if anyone would find him, or if the earth itself would take the body back, unremarked, unnamed. The thought sat heavy. She knew what it meant to vanish like that. Back at base, the air buzzed with heat and tension. Soldiers moved faster, their laughter tighter, like stretched wire ready to snap. Rumors spun, whispers weaving through the barracks. Someone had fired without orders. Someone had seen something the rest hadn't. When she stepped inside, the chatter dimmed. For a second, every eye shifted toward her, and then just as quickly away, as though staring at her too long risked seeing something they weren't ready for. The colonel waited in the operations room, arms folded. Maps pinned to boards, radio chatter spilling from speakers. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Explain." She stood at attention, her shadow stretching long under the bare light. Reflection on East Ridge. Identified barrel, took the shot. His jaw worked, silent. Behind him, two officers exchanged looks. One smirked faintly, like her words amused him. Did anyone else confirm this target? No, her voice didn't waver. The colonel's sigh was heavier than anger. You understand what this looks like. Yes, sir. Another pause, thicker this time, finally dismissed. That was all. No thanks. No recognition. Not even doubt voiced aloud. Just dismissal, as though she were furniture rearranged in the wrong room. She walked out, steps slow, controlled. But inside, something clawed at her ribs. The truth was, she didn't expect gratitude. She didn't expect respect. She only wanted them to understand what silence cost her every day. That night she sat outside the barracks, legs pulled close, the desert wind whispering through empty space. Stars burned sharp above, each one a pinhole of light in endless black. A voice joined her, low, rough, tired, couldn't sleep either. She turned. It was Ramirez, radio tech, soft-spoken, a man who carried homesickness like a scar. He dropped beside her, arms resting on his knees. They're saying you saved the convoy. His eyes stayed on the horizon. They won't say it to your face, but they're saying it. She didn't answer. Ramirez glanced at her, then looked away quickly, as though the weight of her silence was too much to carry. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled photo. A little girl, gap-toothed smile, hair tied in ribbons. My daughter, he said, almost apologetically. She's 6, thinks I work with radios at some boring office. He laughed once, short, hollow. Not this. For a second, the air between them softened. She studied the picture, then handed it back carefully. He nodded. I know you don't talk much, but thank you for today. I don't think she would have understood if I didn't come back. She almost said something then, about what it felt like to hold someone's life in your crosshairs, about how every pull of the trigger etched itself into your bones, permanent. Instead, she only gave the smallest nod. And Ramirez, maybe sensing the effort in that, accepted it like a full conversation. Later in her bunk, she lay awake, staring at the metal ceiling. Memories crept in uninvited, the way they always did when silence pressed too long. A different room, a different war, shouts echoing down corridors, smoke clawing at her throat, a figure, her brother, yelling her name, pushing her toward the exit, his hand burning in hers, then slipping free, the sound of collapse, of stone and steel giving way. She had been 19. No one ever found his body. She closed her eyes, but the memory stayed sharp, carved into her. That was why she carved the notches. Not kills, not trophies, reminders, debts unpaid. And tonight, one more debt joined the list. The man she killed on the ridge, faceless, unnamed, erased in silence. Somewhere he had a photo like Ramirez. A daughter, a mother, someone waiting. She whispered into the dark, a ritual she never skipped. I'm sorry. Morning came harsh and early. Orders shifted. The convoy she'd protected had made it through, but intelligence was thin. Something larger was coming, though no one knew what. In the mess hall, conversations paused when she entered, then resumed in half-lowered tones. She ate quickly, alone, each bite dry, tasteless. Her silence gave them permission to ignore her, and she allowed it. Better that than pretend she belonged in their fragile circle. But there was a storm gathering. She felt it. In the way the colonel barked shorter commands, in the way trucks left at odd hours, lights off, in the way even Ramirez's shoulders hunched lower as though bracing for something unseen. That afternoon she was ordered back to the ridgeline. Same sector, same rifle, alone. She obeyed without question, though unease tightened her chest. Shadows returned to where they were cast. The climb was brutal, the sun merciless. Sweat carved rivers down her spine, her breath rasped against stone. But she moved with practiced efficiency, muscle memory guiding her. She reached the top, settled into position, scope sweeping the valley. And froze. The body was gone. The spot where she knew he had fallen was empty. No blood, no sign of struggle, just bare rock as though he had never been there at all. Her heart skipped. She adjusted the scope, sweeping the ridgeline, scanning every crevice, every shadow. Nothing. But she knew. He had been there, she had seen him fall, so where was he now? Her earpiece crackled. Overwatch report. She hesitated. Her finger hovered over the transmit. What could she say? That the desert had swallowed a body whole, that the evidence of her shot had vanished into thin air. Overwatch status. She forced her voice steady. Position secured, no movement. Her words rang false in her ears. For the first time in months, a tremor of doubt slipped into her hands. Because maybe she wasn't the shadow in daylight. Maybe she was the one being hunted. Why was the body gone? The question pressed against her ribs with every breath, heavier than the rifle slung across her shoulder. Rocks lay silent under the sun, wind scraping sand across stone. No blood, no imprint, no sign that anyone had ever been there. She lay prone, scope sweeping the ridgeline again and again, trying to will the truth into view. Nothing, just the desert's vast indifference staring back at her. Her finger hovered over the mic. Tell them, no, they hadn't believed her reflection. They wouldn't believe this. Shadows don't get the luxury of warning cries. Shadows are only allowed results. Her earpiece buzzed with background chatter, patrols moving, convoys rerouting, a briefing about possible insurgent reinforcements creeping through mountain passes. She tuned it all out, focused on the emptiness before her. But silence doesn't stay silent forever. A sound, soft, barely there, rocks shifting where no one should be. Her scope locked. Ridge east, 200 meters. A silhouette crouched low, slipping between stones with practiced patience. Not the man she had killed, no. Taller, broader, moving with purpose. Her breath caught. She steadied her rifle. But before she could fire, the figure melted back into shadow, leaving only dust stirring in its wake. She whispered to herself, a habit now, you're not alone. Hours passed. She stayed still, waiting, eyes burning from focus. The sun sank low, shadows stretching long and sharp across the valley. Finally, command crackled through her ear. Overwatch return, we've got new intel, move. She hesitated. Every nerve screamed to stay, to watch longer, to uncover the truth of that missing body, that flicker of movement. But orders were orders, and shadows obey even when the light betrays them. Back at base, the camp was restless, trucks loaded and unloaded. Helicopters kicked up storms of dust with every landing. Soldiers moved faster, faces grim. Something had shifted. Ramirez caught her near the comms tent, his expression tight. You hear? She shook her head. They think enemy snipers are pushing closer. One team spotted 2 men on the western ridge. Scoped rifles. It's spreading. Her stomach clenched. She wanted to tell him about the vanishing body, about the silhouette watching her from the rocks, but the words stayed trapped in her chest. If she spoke them, they'd twist into something else, fear, paranoia, weakness. Instead, she asked softly, what's the plan? He hesitated. They're sending out a recon patrol tonight. 6 men, small, fast, try to catch whoever's watching us before they get too close. She nodded, the motion slow, deliberate. 6 men. She could already picture them walking into the dark, boots crunching gravel, rifles raised, hearts beating loud in the silence. She could already picture how easily they might not return. And something inside her couldn't let that happen. So she found the colonel. He stood over a map, lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't look up when she entered. I'll go with them, she said. He paused, pen frozen midair. Not your assignment. They'll need eyes. They'll need quiet, you know that. He finally raised his gaze, studying her. For a moment, she thought he might see her, really see her. But then the doubt flickered back, the same weight she'd seen at the briefing table. You fire without orders again. His voice was low, sharp. You bring them back into a firefight they can't win. Her jaw tightened. Or I bring them back alive. Silence stretched between them. Finally, he exhaled, set the pen down. Fine, but this isn't your mission, you're just extra eyes, understand? She didn't answer, she didn't need to. That night the patrol moved out. The desert was a different creature in darkness. sharp cold replacing heat, silence thicker, more absolute. Stars burned overhead, watching with indifferent clarity. She walked at the rear, rifle ready, boots soft against the stone. The 6 men ahead spoke in whispers, words clipped and nervous. One hummed under his breath, a shaky tune that stopped when the others hissed at him. They moved east, toward the ridge where she'd seen the shadow. Every step closer wound the coil tighter inside her chest. Halfway up the incline, they paused. The leader, Kincaid, broad-shouldered, all bravado, raised a hand. He crouched low, scanning the rocks. "Movement," he murmured. Every rifle lifted, every breath held. She dropped prone, scope sweeping the dark. For a long, crushing moment, nothing, just stone and shadow. Then there, a flicker, 2 figures sliding between rocks, low, efficient. Not random wanderers, trained, patient. Her finger moved to the trigger, but Kincaid's hand shot out, stopping her. "Hold." Her heartbeat thundered. They don't see it, they don't believe it. And then a crack, sharp, violent. Stone exploded inches from Kincaid's head. Chaos erupted. Men dove, shouted, scrambled for cover. Another shot split the night, carving sparks off rock. Her rifle was already up, scope steady. She found one figure half hidden behind stone, muzzle flash giving him away. Inhale, hold, exhale. Her shot cut through the night. The figure crumpled. "Sniper down," she hissed, voice steady against the storm. The second figure shifted, firing fast, wild, pinning them to the rocks. The men panicked, rounds flying aimless into the dark. "Left flank," she shouted, already moving, sliding along the ridge until the angle broke open. Her scope locked. The second sniper exposed just enough. She fired, silence followed. Only their breathing remained, ragged, too loud. Kincaid swore under his breath. "Jesus, you," his voice broke off, he didn't finish. Because in that moment, every man there realized they would have been dead without her. And still no one said it. They regrouped, dragging themselves back down the ridge. No one spoke until they were near camp, lights flickering faint in the distance. Kincaid finally muttered, "Good shot." The words were grudging, awkward, as if admitting more would cost him something. She didn't answer. She didn't need his validation. But as they walked, Ramirez fell into step beside her. His hand brushed his pocket where the photo always was. He didn't look at her, but his voice was soft, certain. "You saved us. Don't let anyone make you forget that." Her chest tightened. The words almost undid her, but she swallowed them down, kept her face still, her steps steady. Because shadows don't break. Shadows don't need thanks. Shadows simply shelter the fragile world around them, unseen, unthanked. And yet, as she entered camp, the colonel's eyes found hers across the dim light. And for the first time, his gaze didn't hold doubt. It held something heavier, something closer to fear. Why did the colonel look at her like that, like she was more danger than safety? Morning broke slow, harsh. Helicopter blades thundered overhead, throwing grit into the air. The camp moved with restless urgency, orders barked, crates hauled, maps pinned and torn down again. Something had shifted after the night patrol. She could feel it in every tense jaw, every nervous glance. She stripped her rifle down piece by piece in the armory, hands steady, mind anything but. The colonel's eyes from the night before lingered in her head, heavy, unshakable. Fear, not respect, not gratitude, fear. She replayed the firefight again and again, the sharp crack of the sniper's shot, the stone shattering near Kincaid's skull, the panicked scramble, her steady trigger squeeze. They would all be dead if she hadn't been there. But instead of trust, she'd earned suspicion. Why? She knew the answer before she admitted it, because she wasn't like them. She didn't fill silence with laughter or bravado. She didn't chase approval. She lived in the margins, the quiet places where no one wanted to look too closely. And that frightened them more than any enemy did. Her earpiece crackled, all units briefing in 10. She locked her rifle together with a snap, slung it over her shoulder, and walked into the sunlight. The operations tent was packed, men shoulder to shoulder, the air thick with sweat and dust. The colonel stood at the front, map unrolled across the table. His voice was low, deliberate. Last night proved what we already suspected. Enemy sharpshooters are tightening the noose. They're watching us as closely as we watch them, which means the next convoy will be blood. Silence followed, no bravado now, just the quiet weight of truth. The colonel's eyes swept the room, landed on her, held a fraction too long. We need counterwatch, a small team deep in their territory, quiet, unseen, take out the spotters before they take us, volunteers. Murmurs, shifting boots. Men glanced at one another, waiting for someone else to step forward. No one did. She felt the silence closing in, wrapping tight around her. She knew what was coming. The colonel spoke again, voice like steel. "Shadow, you're on it." The word dropped like a stone in water. Not her name, not even a rank, just the nickname whispered behind her back, the one none of them thought she heard. She met his eyes. He didn't look away. "Yes, sir," she said. The room broke into scattered coughs, mutters, some relief, some discomfort. They were glad it wasn't them, and afraid of what it meant that it was her. That night she prepared alone, stripped down gear, blackened metal, checked straps and bolts until nothing rattled. In her pocket she carried something no one knew she had, a folded scrap of paper, edges frayed from years of touch, a letter in handwriting not hers, her brother. She hadn't read it in months, but tonight her hands shook as she unfolded it. "You'll never be invisible to me, not ever. If the world forgets you, I won't, I promise." She closed her eyes, pressed the paper to her lips, then folded it tight again, tucked it back into her vest. The mission started at midnight. No moon, just stars and the faint red glow of their night optics. She moved with two others, Ramirez, whose quiet steadiness had earned her trust, and Kincaid, his jaw tight, his silence different now. Less arrogance, more caution. They hiked in silence, boots whispering across gravel, rifles tight against shoulders. The cold bit through fabric, cut sharp into lungs. Hours passed, no firelight, no sound but breath and stone. The desert stretched endless, indifferent. Finally Ramirez raised a hand. He pointed. A ridge ahead jagged against starlight, the enemy's ground. They crawled into position, bellies scraping dirt. She set her rifle, glass sweeping the ridgeline. At first nothing, just rock and shadow. Then movement, two figures hunched, rifles angled down toward the valley, watching, waiting. Her breath slowed. She could take them, 2 shots, clean, done. But her gut twisted. Something was wrong. She whispered into the calm, barely audible, "Too easy." Kincaid hissed, "What?" "Look at their spacing. Wide, deliberate, they want to be seen." "A trap." Ramirez tensed beside her, whisper rough, "What do we do?" She steadied her breath. "Wait." Minutes crawled by, stretching into hours. The two figures didn't move, didn't shift, didn't even scratch. Just statues in the dark. And then behind them, deeper in the shadows, she saw it. A third glint, subtle, the curve of a barrel catching faint starlight. Her heart kicked hard. 3 snipers, 2 bait, 1 waiting. She almost smiled, bitter. "You almost had us." She whispered, "Third man, rear shadow, 270 meters." Kincaid adjusted his scope, hissed, "Damn, she's right." The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. For once, no one doubted her. She exhaled, sighted the third man, inhale, hold, exhale. The shot cracked the night open. The figure dropped. Instant chaos. The 2 bait snipers fired wild, desperate. Stone shattered inches from her cheek. She rolled, steady, glass catching one, squeezed. He fell. The last tried to run. Kincaid's round took him down. Silence again, broken only by the ringing in their ears. Ramirez's whisper was shaky but sure. "We're alive because of her." Kincaid didn't argue this time, didn't smirk, just nodded once hard. They withdrew before dawn, shadows fading back into the desert. When they returned, the camp was stirring, men blinking against the morning light. The colonel waited. He studied their faces, counted heads, all three present. Kincaid spoke first, voice rough. "She was right, Trap, she saved us." The colonel's jaw tightened. His eyes shifted to her, that fear again mixed now with something else. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. But respect doesn't erase suspicion. That night, lying awake in her bunk, she stared at the ceiling. The paper in her vest felt like a weight against her chest. Her brother's words burned in her memory. "You'll never be invisible to me." She whispered into the dark, "I hope not." And still the question haunted her. What did it mean that she frightened even the men she saved? They whispered about her more openly now. Not insults, not mockery, something worse. Fear disguised as silence. She could feel it in the way the mess hall quieted when she entered, in the sidelong glances that lingered too long, in the careful way men kept their backs away from hers, as if instinct warned them she wasn't entirely theirs. Shadow. The nickname had stuck, not a joke anymore, not even an insult, a warning, a myth forming inside their own walls. She sat alone at breakfast, untouched tray in front of her, fork idled in her hand. The laughter of soldiers at the far table rang hollow, forced. None of them looked her way. Ramirez did. He gave a small nod, subtle like a man crossing himself before battle. She returned it with the faintest lift of her chin. It was all they could afford. The colonel entered then, boots hard on stone, voice harder still. "Listen up." The hall stilled. Intel confirms enemy units regrouping North Ridge. Convoy scheduled for tomorrow will be walking into a kill box unless we act tonight. Snipers, machine nests, reinforced lines. This is no probe. This is a stand. Men shifted, muttered. The colonel's eyes swept the hall, found her, stopped. "You'll lead the advance recon, shadow team." A murmur rippled like wind through dry grass. She felt every eye on her, some heavy with dread, some with hope, none with trust. She rose without a word, tray untouched, rifle slung. Night fell thick, swallowing the valley. She and 6 others moved through it, ghosts against stone, Ramirez at her flank, Kincaid in the rear, 4 more chosen for their silence, their steadiness. No chatter, no bravado, just breath and the scrape of boots. The ridge loomed ahead, dark shapes against darker sky. Every step closer, the air tightened, pulling at her chest. They reached cover spread along the outcropping. She raised her scope. Her breath caught. Dozens, not 2, not 5. Dozens of enemy rifles dug into the rock, barrels glinting faint red in their night optics. A lattice of death pointed at the valley below. And behind them, something worse. Heavy guns, belt-fed, tripod-braced, waiting. It wasn't a kill zone. It was an execution ground. Ramirez whispered, voice tight, "We can't break that, not even with air support." She didn't answer. She was still scanning. And then she saw it, movement deeper in the ridge. A cluster of figures huddled low, radio antenna faint against starlight. Spotters, coordinators, the brain of the beast. Her finger tapped the stone twice, signal for silence. She studied the angles, distances, paths. Her heart slowed as it always did before she decided. She whispered, low as breath, "We cut the head." Kincaid hissed, "That's suicide." Staying silent is suicide. No one argued further, not really, because they knew she was right. They moved in, low, crawling. Every scrape of fabric felt like thunder, every heartbeat like a beacon. Closer, closer. The first spotter's shadow loomed. She pressed the rifle to her shoulder, breath steady. One shot. A head snapped back, body crumpling soundless. The others whipped around. Confusion, panic, she fired again. Ramirez 2, Kincaid, 3 fell before the rest even screamed. Gunfire erupted. The ridge exploded into chaos. Nests turned, searching, muzzles flashed, rocks shattered, dirt sprayed. "Move," she barked, louder than she'd spoken in weeks. Her voice cut like steel. They sprinted along the ridge, weaving between stone, firing, dropping enemies one by one. The enemy scrambled, their coordination shattered without spotters to guide. Guns fired wild, tracers lancing sky. Still, the cost came swift. One of theirs went down Mayer, chest punched red. Another Ellis dragged him 2 steps before a round cut him down too. The ridge was fire and blood. But the valley below saved. The convoy would never walk into that death. She didn't think, she didn't count. She just moved, silent and brutal, every shot finding a mark. Ramirez at her side, grim. Kincaid cursing, firing, cursing again. At last silence fell. Echoes rolled down the valley, faded, smoke drifted, bodies lay scattered, rifles cooling. She lowered her rifle, breath ragged. 4 left out of 7. She looked at Ramirez. Blood streaked his sleeve, but he was alive. Kincaid too, face pale, eyes wide, not with fear this time, with something else. He stared at her, chest heaving. "You're not human." The words hung heavy, carried more awe than insult, but still they burned. She met his gaze, voice flat. "No, just human enough." They returned at dawn, the survivors dragging themselves back into camp. Faces turned to see them, counted, measured. The colonel stood at the center, arms crossed. His eyes took in their numbers, their wounds, the blood on their uniforms. Ramirez spoke first, voice low. "We cut their command, convoy safe." The colonel nodded once, but his eyes stayed on her, long, searching. Around them whispers spread, not jokes now, not even fear, stories. "She saw them before they saw us. Cut through their nest like it was nothing. Didn't even flinch." She walked past them all, head high, rifle across her chest. The silence followed her, thicker than ever. In her bunk she unfolded the letter again, hands trembling now. Her brother's words blurred as her vision stung. "You'll never be invisible to me, not ever." She closed her eyes, whispered hoarse. "Then why does everyone else look through me?" The camp outside was restless. Word spread that the enemy would not take the blow quietly. Retaliation was coming, bigger, harder, soon. And she knew, lying there in the dim, that the next night would demand more than silence. It would demand everything. The attack came before dawn. No warning, no sound of distant mortars, just an eruption, the sky tearing open, earth convulsing beneath them. She woke to the thunder of rockets. The barracks shook, steel groaning, dust choking the air. Screams cut sharp, then smothered by the roar of collapsing beams. She rolled from her bunk, rifle in hand, before her eyes had cleared. The world tilted, orange firelight, black smoke, red streaks cutting across the valley. Outside, chaos. Men stumbling from shelters, half-dressed, bloodied. Medics dragging the wounded, shoving them under cover. Sirens wailed, shrill and broken. She ran, no hesitation, boots striking dirt. Her lungs burned with smoke, ears ringing with explosions. She leapt into the trench as the second volley hit. The ground lifted, swallowed sound. When it settled, Ramirez was beside her, face streaked with soot, eyes blazing. "They've encircled," he shouted over the din. "Heavy barrage, then push." She nodded once, no words. And then it began. Figures in the smoke, dark shapes rushing, rifles flashing. The enemy had come close under cover of bombardment, too close. She raised her rifle. The world narrowed to the sight, the squeeze, the recoil. One fell, then another, then another. Kincaid was there too, screaming obscenities, firing wild, dragging wounded back between bursts. His face was pale, eyes furious, fear and rage together. But the line bent, too many, too fast. Ramirez grabbed her arm. "We hold or we're ash." She broke from the trench, sprinted across open ground under a hail of fire. Bullets whipped past, dirt spat in her face. She slid into the ruined barracks, glass crunching under boots. From the high window she raised her scope. Her heart slowed, breath steadied, the battlefield sharpened. Every shot found its mark. Enemy gunners dropped mid-spray. A squad fell before reaching the trench. Another buckled as their leader's chest burst red. For a moment the tide faltered. But then the sound, a low grinding howl, metal on metal, engines rising. Her gut clenched, armor. Through the smoke hulking silhouettes advanced. Light armored carriers rolling slow, unstoppable. Their guns rotated, muzzles glowing. The trench erupted as shells tore it apart. Screams lifted, cut short. She dropped from the window, breath ragged. Ramirez stumbled in, blood soaking his arm. His voice shook. "We can't hold armor, not with rifles." Her mind raced. Options, none good, none clean. Her eyes locked on the storage depot across the yard. Half collapsed, but inside, old crates marked with faded stencils. Explosives. She met Ramirez's eyes. He read her before she spoke, shook his head. "That's suicide." She said nothing, just moved. The yard was fire and lead. She sprinted low, weaving between wreckage, bullets snapping inches from her head. Her chest burned. Her legs screamed. She crashed into the depot, lungs choking on dust. Splintered crates lay scattered. She tore one open. Bricks of explosive, charges, enough to break the armor if placed right. Her hands trembled as she packed them into her bag, not from fear, from memory. Her brother's handwriting flickered in her mind. "Promise me, whatever it costs, you'll come home." Her jaw clenched, breath hitched, she forced it down. Outside the ground shook, armor closing, time dissolving. Ramirez burst in, dragging another wounded man. "We'll cover you." Her voice broke low. "No, you get them out." He froze, eyes locked, saw what she meant. "Don't," he whispered. But she was already moving. She crawled through rubble toward the ridge line. The carriers loomed, dark giants spitting fire. Every step closer, death hissed past, bullets, shrapnel, shards of stone. Her chest heaved. Her heart pounded, not fast, heavy, each beat a drum of finality. She reached the slope, slid low beneath sightlines, pressed charges under the first carrier, magnets clamping to steel, moved to the second, breath short, ears deaf to the storm above. Every sound magnified, the grind of treads, the click of her timer, the thud of her heartbeat. She set the last charge and froze. A shadow fell across her. An enemy soldier, too close, rifle raised. Her body reacted before her mind. Knife flashed, silence sharp. The man crumpled, eyes wide even in death. She trembled only for a moment, then pushed forward, timer set, charges primed. She crawled back, dirt grinding into her skin, lungs tearing with smoke. And then the sky ripped. 3 fireballs tore upward, shredding metal, belching smoke. Carriers lifted, twisted, crashed in thunder. The ground shuddered. The trench erupted in cheers. The enemy faltered, their line broken, their advance collapsing. She lay in the dirt, chest heaving, vision blurred. Alive. Barely. The battle dragged hours longer, but the armor's fall had broken the spine. The enemy retreated, dragging their wounded, leaving fire and silence behind. Camp smoldered, dozens dead, more wounded, the air thick with ash, blood, disbelief. She sat against the ruined wall, hands blackened, body trembling. Ramirez found her there, dropped beside her, eyes red. "You saved them," he said, voice hoarse. She shook her head, staring at the fires. "I saved what was left." Kincaid limped past, bandaged, eyes lingering on her. No insults this time, no fear, just a look long, unreadable. Around them whispers grew again. Not jeers, not awe, something quieter, heavier. Shadow stopped the armor. Walked into fire like it was nothing. "She's not one of us, but without her none of us are here." She lowered her gaze. Her hands shook, not from exhaustion, from the weight pressing down heavier than any armor. Because she knew the truth. Every step, every shot, every charge she had set, none of it erased the faces of the ones she hadn't saved. Mayer, Ellis, dozens more. and her brother's voice always there. "Promise me." She closed her eyes, tears cutting tracks through soot, whispered to the silence. "I don't break promises, even if it kills me." The wind carried the smoke away, leaving only the sound of crackling fire. For a moment, she almost believed the silence answered back. Morning came gray but not quiet. The fire still burned. Smoke curled through the valley like ghosts refusing to leave. The ground was littered with twisted steel, shattered rifles, and the silent faces of the men they couldn't carry fast enough to the medics. She walked among them with steps that felt heavier than her body should allow. Every face she passed, she memorized. It was a curse she carried, the way she forced herself to look, to see, to not let them vanish as nameless numbers. Ramirez limped beside her, one arm bandaged, jaw set against pain. He said nothing. He knew she didn't want words right now. The colonel was waiting near the command post, a map pinned across broken crates. His eyes found her as soon as she approached. "You bought us another day," he said flatly. Another day, the words cut. She didn't answer, just stared at the map where red markers bled across the ridge. More enemy positions, reinforcements. The strike had slowed them but not broken them. "They'll come again," she said finally. Her voice was low, steady. The colonel nodded, "Stronger, and when they do, we'll need you." The men nearby heard it. She felt their eyes turn again, not with derision anymore, not even fear, dependence, as if her silence was the last wall between them and oblivion. It was a weight heavier than hatred. Later in the med tent, the air was sharp with antiseptic and blood. Rows of men lay groaning, some silent, some already too still. She moved between them like a shadow. Kincaid was there, shoulders stitched, face pale. He looked at her with eyes hollow but clear. "You shouldn't be alive," he muttered. She met his gaze. "Neither should you." For a moment, silence. Then his lip twitched, not quite a smile, more like surrender. He looked away, voice softer. "I was wrong about you." She didn't answer, didn't forgive him, didn't need to. She just turned, moving deeper into the tent. There she found Ellis's bunk empty, sheets folded. Mayer's boots by the cot, laces undone. Ghosts everywhere. Her chest tightened, but her face stayed stone. That night the camp settled into a tense hush. The men spoke low, voices drifting like smoke. Some prayed, some cursed, some sat staring at the ground as if waiting for it to open. She sat alone, cleaning her rifle by lantern light. Every part gleamed under her careful touch. A ritual more than maintenance. Something steady, controlled when the world outside spun out of grasp. Ramirez sat across from her, silent a long time. Finally, he spoke. "You ever think about after?" She looked up, eyes hard. "After what?" "All this, if we walk away alive." Her hands stilled. She thought of her brother, his letter, his face bright with laughter before the deployment that ended him. "I don't," she said, voice flat, final. Ramirez studied her, then leaned back, exhaling. "That's the difference. You carry the fight so heavy, you forget there's anything beyond it." She didn't reply, but the words lodged deep, cutting sharper than he knew. Because the truth was, she did think about after, quietly, secretly, and it terrified her more than any battlefield. 3 days passed before the scouts returned with word. Enemy forces massing again, twice the size of the last push. The colonel gathered them under the smoldering remains of the briefing tent. His voice was tight, controlled, but the weight of his words pressed like stone. "They know we're bleeding. They want to finish it. We hold the line here or there is no line." Maps, strategies, fallback points. But beneath it all, every glance slid toward her, as if the plan hinged not on logistics, not on numbers, but on her. When the briefing ended, the colonel pulled her aside. "You know what they call you now?" She didn't answer. "Not just shadow, not just rumor, they're calling you a curse, a myth. Some of them believe you can't die." Her jaw tightened. The colonel's voice lowered. They need to believe that, let them. Her chest ached, though her face betrayed nothing. She wasn't a curse. She wasn't invincible. She was a woman carrying too many ghosts. But she said nothing, because silence was easier than breaking under the truth. That night, as the camp slept in uneasy waves, she walked the perimeter alone. The wind was cold, carrying scents of ash and damp stone. Her boots crunched softly in the dirt. Every corner she turned, she saw the faces of those she couldn't save. Ellis, Mayer, men she'd only known by their voices in the dark. And always her brother, his last words echoing like a drumbeat. "Promise me." She stopped at the edge of the ridge, staring into the dark where the enemy gathered unseen. She felt it then, not fear, not even anger, a strange stillness. Like standing on the edge of a cliff, knowing the fall was coming, but not knowing if she'd be the one to land or shatter. Behind her, footsteps, Ramirez again. He didn't speak at first, just stood beside her, eyes on the horizon. Finally, he asked the question that had haunted them all. Why do you carry it all?" Her throat tightened, words pressed, resisted. At last she let one out. "Because someone has to." Silence stretched, the wind shifted. Ramirez looked at her long, then nodded. "Then we'll carry it too," he said softly. She turned her head, eyes catching his. For a moment the weight lightened, not gone, but shared. And in that moment the myth cracked. She wasn't a shadow, not invincible, not cursed, just flesh, bone, and will held together by silence and the fragile thread of a promise. When she returned to her bunk, the camp was still restless. Men stirred in their sleep. Some wept quietly when they thought no one could hear. She lay back, staring at the canvas above. The letter folded against her chest, the words etched deeper than ink. "You'll never be invisible to me." Her eyes closed. For the first time in weeks, she let herself believe it. But morning would come, and with it the storm. And she knew the next day would not be about survival. It would be about choosing how much of herself she was willing to lose to keep the rest alive. The dawn didn't break that morning. It bled. The horizon glowed with fire before the sun rose. Distant thunder rolled through the valley, a storm of men and steel, gathering to erase them. She stood at the ridge, rifle slung, helmet low, face unreadable. Around her the camp stirred. Men tightened straps, loaded magazines, whispered prayers. No jokes now, no bravado, just the sound of hearts beating against inevitability. The colonel's voice cut the air. "Positions." The word cracked like a gavel. Men scattered, trenches filled, guns mounted. Every eye flicked to her once, then away, as if her presence alone might steady their hands. She felt it pressing down, the unspoken belief, shadow will hold. Her hands trembled as she chambered the first round. She forced them still, breath in, breath out. Ramirez came to her side, jaw set, wounds not yet healed but ignored. "If today's the day," he said quietly, "then let's make it a day they'll never forget." She didn't answer, didn't need to. Their silence said enough. The first shells screamed overhead. The earth tore open, spraying dirt and fire. The line shook, men thrown to the ground. Then came the rush. Waves of soldiers pouring from the smoke, rifles blazing, voices a chorus of hate. She lifted her scope. The world narrowed, one shot, another, men fell, still they came. The trench roared with gunfire, smoke thick, screams raw. The line buckled, steadied, buckled again. Through the chaos she moved like a phantom, one position to the next, covering a machine gun nest when its crew fell, dragging a bleeding medic to safety, her rifle never silent. Men saw her and shouted not insults, not curses, just one word carried over the roar. "Shadow." And for a moment it steadied them. For a moment they believed. But belief couldn't stop what came next. The second wave, heavier, meaner, armored again, crawling up the ridge with guns that split the sky. The trenches erupted, men torn apart, walls collapsing. The line fractured, gaps opening. The colonel's voice over comms was hoarse, desperate. "Hold the line, hold." She scanned, heart pounding, saw it the weak flank. If the armor broke through there, the camp was finished. She didn't think, she just moved. Ramirez saw her break away, shouted after her, didn't follow, he knew. She ran low, weaving through fire, lungs tearing, boots slipping in blood and mud. She reached the flank as the first armored carrier rolled in, treads grinding over bodies. Her hands tore open her last charges, wires trembling. She crawled under fire, the world a tunnel of heat and noise. Set one charge, then another. Her breath ragged, her vision tunneling. Above her, voices screamed. Enemy soldiers shouting, rifles raking the dirt inches from her. She pressed the last charge, slammed the timer, rolled away. The explosion split the ridge. Steel twisted, fire erupted. The carrier flipped, crashed into the next, chain reaction tearing the flank apart. The enemy scattered, screaming. The trench roared in triumph. She lay in the dirt, ears ringing, body broken, chest heaving. Alive barely. She tried to rise, her body refused. Blood seeped through her vest, warm and heavy. Ramirez appeared, face pale, dragging her up with trembling hands. "Stay with me. You hear me? Stay." Her head lolled, eyes finding his. She wanted to speak, but her voice was gone. He carried her, stumbling back toward the line. Men cleared a path, eyes wide, faces grim. For the first time they looked at her not as myth, not as curse, as one of them. He laid her down behind the trench wall, hands pressing wounds he couldn't stop. "You saved them," he whispered, voice cracking. Her eyes fluttered. She saw the sky above, smoke curling against pale light, and she saw her brother's face there, smiling, alive in memory. "Promise me." Her lips moved, breath faint. "I kept it." Ramirez bent close, tears cutting through grime. "Rest, Shadow, rest." Her eyes closed, her chest rose once, twice. Silence. The battle raged for hours more, but they held. When the enemy broke and fled, the valley was scarred, the camp in ruins but alive. At dusk the survivors gathered, dirty, bloodied, hollow-eyed. They carried no cheers, just silence. At the ridge they placed her rifle in the earth, barrel down, helmet atop, a marker, not of myth, of a soldier who had carried more than her share and paid more than her due. Ramirez stood before it, shoulders bowed. The men behind him stood too, heads low. No speeches, no prayers, just silence. Because sometimes silence is the only language strong enough to hold the weight of a life. Weeks later, the letter arrived at headquarters, forwarded from her personal effects. Ramirez was the one who opened it. His hands shook as he unfolded the paper, the ink smudged from where she had read it again and again. "You'll never be invisible to me, not ever." He closed it, eyes burning, and for the first time since the ridge, he allowed himself to weep. Her story spread, not as legend, not as myth, but as memory. Men spoke of her in quiet tones, not loud boasts. They remembered the silence she carried, the way she had held the line when the world was falling apart. And they remembered the truth that lingered, unspoken but clear. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And in the silence it leaves behind, a nation breathes.